What's happening, Reds? It's Jamie Webster here. Just wanted to say, subscribe below. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Liverpool Connection podcast. We are a podcast where we bring you Liverpool football stories, whether it be musicians, ex-players, writers, journalists, and fans as well. I am going solo today. If you don't know me, I'm Dazza. Steve is not with us. He is unavailable today. He's got to work. Sad man. But he should be back for our next episode next week. Really chuffed. Today we got a writer in. He has just joined the ranks of the Liverpool Echo, and I saw his Twitter. He was very happy about that, which he should be. Liverpool Connection podcast is welcoming KEIFER MacDonald. How are you, mate?
Good, thanks. It's been a long time coming. I'm looking forward to jumping on the pod. So yeah, no, be good to get into a good chat about everything Liverpool. I mean, you know, it's only next week to start pre-season, isn't it? So the flavours are starting to flow back. So proper stuff starting soon.
It's like you know, the advent calendar. You've got it on the wall, and you're just ticking the boxes off, going, okay, it's closer and closer and closer. Well, I mean, even like pre-season now. You start, I mean, especially after, you know, the last week of last season, two basically, you know, chances to win the biggest trophies in you know, football, and we didn't get both of them, and it was tough to take. So I was hoping pre-season was like 1 week later, just get into it. But I mean, the lads obviously needed a break. They look well rested. I mean, we brought some new players in. We still might bring in someone, maybe. You know, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to get to, you know, how you became, you know, a Liverpool supporter, because you said you're from Derby, right?
So I'm Derbyshire. So I'm from a small place in Derbyshire called Matlock. So growing up, really, obviously, it was me, my mum's a single parent, and my older brother who's a year older. So, you know, I'm sure as many other people can relate with kind of like older siblings, kind of whatever my brother did, you know, I would kind of follow, you know, because obviously that would be what I thought would be the right thing to do. And, you know, there was countless mistakes, but luckily he got this one right. And, you know, from the ages of, you know, 4 or 5 on the old Pro Evo games, you know, he was just always like obsessed with Liverpool. And that was just something that kind of trickled down to me, really. And, you know, it was that was like our thing. You know, we both played football, you know, so it was like, if we weren't playing at that time, you know, we'd spend your summers in the parks or in the streets playing football. You know, we were playing Pro Evo, or, you know, doing whatever we could, reading the old Match of the Day magazines, the old, you know, the match cards, all those kind of things. And that's kind of just where it all started for me, really. And then obviously as you kind of, you know, grow older and you kind of get more of an interest into it, and, you know, watching Match of the Day, and, you know, you get Sky Sports and the games on the telly, and, you know, you're going to, you know, primary school talking to your mates about football, you're watching the old Champions League on ITV. So yeah, that's kind of just really where my obsession, I'd call it, with Liverpool started. And it's just been something that's kind of grown, you know, since. And, you know, I'm lucky that I've, you know, some of my best mates who I've made in kind of life have come from, you know, Liverpool Football Club, which is, you know, really like special and unique thing. And I think if people who experience that kind of get that kind of thing, and people maybe who are from the outside who maybe aren't into football, they might think, oh, that's a bit weird. But, you know, for anyone who goes or has gone, or, you know, is kind of involved with it, they are the best days of your life, especially as like a young teenager going into your kind of early adulthood years. So yeah, no, it's been great. And like I say, my brother doesn't obviously go as much as me now, but it's nice because I kind of return the favour and I'm able to take him, you know. And we've had some, you know, we had some great memories from kind of where it all started to kind of like, you know, watching Liverpool at Anfield. You know, the one that sticks out is the United game, January 2020. You know, when Salah scored that goal, took his shirt off in front of the cop, and me and my brother were there, like arm in arm, singing "We're going to win the league." And like, just to go from like where we started to kind of where it was, kind of thing, is just really nice. And then obviously, like, luckily I've been able to kind of combine you know, my love for like sport and Liverpool and football kind of thing into a career. You know, obviously it's still at early stages, but yeah, it's been a really good couple of years. So yeah, I suppose it's not a bad thing, is it, to be able to write about Liverpool every day?
Oh, no, I mean, I think that's probably most Liverpool fans. It's either you want to be a Liverpool footballer, or you like to write about them, you know. And unlucky for me, I can't do any of those. So I do a podcast and I chef. So that's my stuff. But you know, we all love Liverpool the same anyway. But yeah, must have been a lot nicer that your brother wasn't like a United supporter, or Chelsea, or God forbid that. I don't even use that word on this podcast, but you know what word I'm talking about. They play in blue and they're absolute shite. But yeah, I mean, so when was your first Anfield match then?
So my first game was, I think I would have been about 13. So obviously, like I said, my mum obviously was a single parent, and obviously the interest from football obviously didn't stem from her. So obviously I was never, my growing up kind of thing in those kind of early years wasn't obviously, going to the games and stuff. I wasn't in that position where my mum, she didn't have an interest to take me, not in a cynical way, but just, it was never something that was on her agenda. And then kind of as I got older and, like into my early teenage years and kind of, figured it all out, how you get the tickets and build it up kind of thing. So mine was like, under Rodgers kind of thing, and kind of just jumped on there. So my game would have been, so 0-0 against Blackburn in the FA Cups, maybe about 8 years ago now, 7, 8, 9 years ago. And then just from there, really, I was working a part-time job in a cafe at a time as a runner. So that was just every penny I got from them was, saving for the big members sales and, putting pounds together to kind of get tickets and whatever. And me and my mum, we went a couple of times over the years. And then obviously as I kind of got to like, 16, 17 and kind of made my own kind of friends going to the game, I kind of just tied in with kind of moving away to uni. So I went to uni in Manchester, and then so I kind of just started going not on my own, but like with my friends, if that makes sense. And then it was really nice actually, because the last game my mum went to was a 2-2 with Sevilla in the Champions League, about 2017 it would have been. And obviously, she'd seen me go like, all around Europe and kind of doing all that. And she was like, oh, I'd really love to get back to a game. Obviously then COVID happened. And then obviously, she was a bit timid of COVID and whatever, those first couple of months back, which was, completely understandable. But then to the kind of final couple of weeks of the season, I took her to the Watford game. So that was really nice kind of thing, because, so much had happened in those kind of, 5 years since, obviously I've done countless games in the press box kind of thing, started working. And it was a really nice, like, thing for her as well to kind of see where, some of my kind of favorite memories during my early kind of life have been. So, yeah, it's nice. Like I say, now kind of obviously split between like work and kind of going as a fan, but yeah, it's been, since I have been lucky enough to go on a frequent basis, you never take it for granted. Like I still get the goosebumps walking up from the pub, you see Anfield there. It never, again, you could speak to anyone, and I think those feelings from the first time would still be there on the 100th time, the 1000th time kind of thing. It's just something you don't lose. It's such a special experience, isn't it?
Yeah, it never goes away. I mean, like, you're a youngster compared to me. My first match was 76. So, 6 years old. I wasn't able to take it all in then. It wasn't until I was about probably 15. Then I saw the magnitude of like how Anfield and the crowd was. And, to this day, you're exactly right. There's still, goosebumps when you walk up to Anfield, you get the butterflies, and then, you get to see all your mates and then you have a few bevies now. I'm surprised you're old enough to have a bevy.
No, so
the youngest ones we've probably had on here.
Really?
Most of them are geriatrics.
Most of them have seen all the 6 European Cups.
Oh God, yeah. All that boring old story. I've won this, I've won that. Oh, come on. You haven't been in the pit though, have you? No, but it never changes, does it? I mean,
no, never.
I think it gets better.
Yeah, I think that you touched on there as you know, you start to appreciate it more. Obviously, like I said, I was obviously an early teenager when I kind of started going. So obviously, the first couple of times you're still a bit taken back by it all, but then probably same as you when I was like 15, 16 kind of thing, like the early days of Klopp, that's when I was like, you know, so I think especially the early, like the latter stages of Rodgers' time to the early kind of days of Klopp, and you know that first full season, you kind of see the transition of the crowd, and you know you think you've seen it firsthand of, you know, how not how bad it was under Rodgers, because yeah, it was bad, but you know it was, you know, just teams in far worse predicaments, but you know for Liverpool Football Club standards, you know how kind of disappointing it was, and then you get this guy taking over, and you know you hear the stories about Shankly and the impact he had on the city, and you know especially in the modern era of football, you think you'll never get anything close to that again. You know, it's such a commercialized business, and you know managers are barely get time to get their feet under the table. You know, if they're not pulling out results, that they're pretty much gone, aren't they? So you know, for someone to come in and, you know, after 7 years that Klopp has had, and you know, to kind of live through that, and I think it's all been beyond our wildest dreams what he's kind of done. And I think especially like now you look back at it and you think, God, you know, if he left tomorrow, obviously he wouldn't, but you know, or especially when his contract runs out, you think you probably still won't believe it happened. You know, the things we've seen, the teams he's put out, the nights we've had at Anfield, you know, the games we've seen, you know, we've been to 3 European Cup finals, which, you know, in the space of 4 years, it's just absolutely mental. And it's just been, you know, like I say, you hear the Shankly era, that, you know, and Paisley and kind of what they did and how he turned Liverpool into such a force in Europe, and you know, that's, you know, I don't think it gets better than this, and you know, it's probably on, yeah, that the Paisley team obviously won, you know, far more trophies, but I think the numbers this team are pulling up on a consistent basis, you know, it's probably up there with the Paisley teams, you know, the great teams of yesteryear, because you know, I think Liverpool's pulling power at the minute. I mean, you only have to, you know, you've got, you know, the signing of Nunes last week. You've got, you know, even recently as today, the links to Jude Bellingham. You know, 5 years ago, Liverpool weren't in the conversations to be signing, you know, cream of the crop, you know, European players. Yes, they're young, but you know, those players where, you know, you're competing with the likes of Barcelona and the Real Madrids, and you know, Liverpool. The thing that I like now is that Liverpool's not a stepping stone anymore, and that kind of tells you everything you need to know. Liverpool is a destination. Liverpool is the pinnacle. And that's all thanks to Jurgen Klopp and kind of everything that's gone on over the past 7 years. So, you know, it's kind of sad because you think, well, it doesn't get much better than this. So surely it's all downhill, isn't it? After he goes, but no, fingers crossed it continues.
Well, that's the thing, you know. Me granddad always used to tell me, like, the Shankly and Paisley era, there will never ever be anything like this again. You know, now I look up to the heavens, I go, you were wrong, granddad. I mean, we are. I mean, I'm lucky to have lived, you know, part of the 70s and 80s. That's when Liverpool Football Club was at its, you know, top. Then the 90s, not so much, and obviously the 2000s, we were nowhere near where we should have been. So to see this team and come back and put us back on the pedestal, you know, the most successful club in England and European royalty, it's just boss to see. You know, even though you'll still get it from opposing fans talking absolute cod shit, that we're nowhere near, you know, the United treble winning team and all this. We're up there, definitely.
100%.
You know, I've always, like, last season, even though we didn't win the quad, which, you know, most opposing fans loved that, we still won 2 trophies compared to any of the other top teams. Man City only won 1. Yeah, the Premier League is massive, but at the end of the day, it's still 2. And just to be challenging for the quad was amazing to me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
you look at, you know, squad depth. City could put out 11 teams and probably get what, first,
second or third, yeah,
and nowhere near winning the Champions League again.
Yeah,
you got to get there to win it, you know, to the final and win it. We were I thought we were unlucky. I thought the first half we played, you know, very, very well, and again, when the keeper has a worldie, it's just one of those. It's not going in, and then their shot goes in. But just to watch this team last season, and even even the season before that, when we had half the team missing, we still rallied.
Still came through.
And then the season before that. So anybody that moans about this team just needs to stop watching football.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. Every match last season, we had a few wobbles, but 98% of the matches are just boss. I couldn't have asked for any better.
No, and especially to kind of keep a quadruple charge going till the last week of May. Considering the season that we've had, and you look you kind of look at after the Leicester game, which would have probably been the midway point of the campaign, Leicester away, and obviously a disappointing night, but people then are saying the league's gone. I think then we played Chelsea a couple of days later, and there's another frustrating draw there given the circumstances of going 2-0 up and kind of drawing 2-2. And I think City go on and they beat Brentford. I think whichever side it was before or after, I can't quite remember. But the gap's 15 points, or whatever it was, 14 points. And whether that was a false lead or not, you'd rather always have points on the board, wouldn't you, than games in hand. I think that's a common agreement everyone can come to. So for Liverpool to kind of just chip away during AFCON without two of their best players in the second half of last season, Salah wasn't up to the standard that he kind of did between August and January, but he's still a phenomenal player on his day. So to kind of chip away at that lead and put the pressure on City while sustaining, a League Cup charge, an FA Cup charge, Champions League charge is just phenomenal. And like you say, Liverpool don't have the deepest squad in the world, and to be fair, I do think last season is probably the best squad that we have had under Klopp. Obviously does with a COVID market, those players who probably should have moved on who didn't, and probably stayed around longer than they would have done in a kind of normal era. You're looking at people like Minamino who probably would have gone last summer. So they were around. Origi was around, but they were put to good use, and Klopp utilised that so well. His man management came into the front, didn't it? And he was able to make everyone feel worthwhile, like their efforts were accounting to something, a bigger picture. That's what we always say, don't we? It's like you're looking at the bigger picture, and come game week 60, 62, whatever it was, you're still within a shot of winning the Premier League. And obviously we all know how that afternoon went, but Liverpool 15 minutes away from winning a Premier League. And I know that doesn't win you anything, but does that not just show the level of a 38-game season to take it down to, 37, in 3 quarters is phenomenal. And as you touched on the Champions League final, it was, kind of panned out in a very similar way to Kiev, didn't it? If, Liverpool kind of started well, they were fearless, you thought Madrid were there for the taking, and obviously the goalkeeper makes a few, he made a hell of a lot of decent saves, didn't he, that night? And then Real Madrid kind of, get a second wind, and all those kind of European Cups they've won as a squad beforehand kind of come to the fore, and they're able to use that experience and that know-how and that gamesmanship, and it's not a sly against Liverpool, because, these are the 14-time champions of Europe, you know what I mean? So it's, it didn't end, the season didn't end how anyone would have wanted. We would have all liked at least one of the big two, but for me, I said after we won the league, I know that season, that was obviously postponed, with fans for the final 10 games. But I didn't think anything would beat that league title season, because just off the back of those first 27 games, I think it was 26 wins and a draw, wasn't it? Which was, I didn't think we'd ever see anything better than that. And then to kind of go back first season back after, watching it at home, I think everyone would agree was a dire 12-month period, 18-month period during COVID. To then hit those heights is just phenomenal. And people can say we're the nearly men of English football, or, whatever. But, if Liverpool would, that's 3 times on the clock Liverpool have accumulated 90 plus points. They've got that's phenomenal in itself. The 90-point barrier was before Guardiola and Klopp. It was only what Chelsea had done it, and I think United had done it once a day, maybe. So it just kind of shows the standard of where the game's heading. And I'm sure City will have the same argument. They could easily be sitting here now with 5 straight Premier League trophies, but they respect the competition they're up against. And on the other hand, Liverpool could be sitting here with 4 or 5 straight Premier League trophies, but they don't. But I wrote something earlier this week that kind of said, I think Liverpool and City have more to thank each other for than they'd want to, because I think the constant, if you're going up against a world-class team, a world-class manager in Guardiola and Klopp, and, Grealish, Foden, Sterling, all those players that City have, all the players that we have, I think it's only going to make you better. And I think Liverpool, we don't have the trophies that this era probably deserves. But, I think we can all agree that it's probably been one of the most enjoyable eras in the club's history, without a doubt.
Well, you've also got to think, if it wasn't for us, in the last, 4-5 years, it'd be a Farmers League.
Yeah.
It'd be PSG all over. Yeah. So I think, the good thing is both teams push each other. And I'm sure even Guardiola was like, I'm glad it's come down to the last match of the season, because it just makes it a bit more exciting. But,
yeah, and it gives him more credit, doesn't it? In a sense, he can get more back from it, as, if this terrific Liverpool team, which obviously had got to the final, had the chance of becoming European champions, if Guardiola can say, look, we've held off them. And, I think you only have to look at that Liverpool's points haul in the second half of the season. I think it was like 53 from 57 or something like that. There was 2 draws in there, and that just tells you everything you need to know. If you're on course for 108 points or something ridiculous, if you do that over a season, it's just an incredible standard. And like I said, I've mates obviously from living in Manchester, City fans, season ticket holders, and they're gripped by the I say rivalry with loosely, but you know what I mean, the on-pitch kind of rivalry between the two sides, because they know that this is the best rivalry I think the league has ever seen. As horrible as it would have been, can you imagine a Champions League final between the two sides? Like, that's all it needs really to crown off this kind of era of they need a cup final. But you look at how the semi-final went at Wembley, albeit City didn't have their strongest team out that day, but the games that we've been treated to between the two sides. I know there was 2 draws last season, but they're always, high quality, high value, exciting. It's probably hard for us to say because we're so invested in it. But if you're a neutral, I can't imagine anything. The amount of friends who I've got saying, "Oh, I can't wait for that game at the weekend." It's like, why? The last thing I want to do is watch Liverpool versus City. But for them, it's like it's become such a blockbuster fixture, and it's it's shaped really an era, hasn't it, of English football. And I think it'll only be in 20, 30 years times when we sit down and we look back at it and you think, yeah, that was the time, that was what an era that was. Yeah, we didn't get what we kind of deserved maybe, or what the points merited, but we've still won 6 trophies in 4 years, which is not a bad thing at all, is it?
Well, I mean, even remember a few seasons ago when we drew 0-0 with them.
Yeah,
it was one of the best 0-0s I've ever watched. Those 0-0s are absolute dire. That 0-0 was just great to watch. I mean, it's 2 teams going at it. We're both attacking teams, and I don't really watch City matches, but when I do, I appreciate their football. You have to. Yeah. I mean, they play really good football. You can't just say Liverpool play good football and that's it. City play really good football. If they didn't, they wouldn't be, doing what they've done. I mean, yeah, the money helps, but they're still a terrific side. So
100%, and I think as well, like I think everyone's kind of well within the right to maybe criticize City and kind of the whole Sheikh Mansour era, and they've obviously had it easier than other teams, which is obviously a fact given the resources, given who they're now able to attract. But I think you only have to look at Chelsea, and even as frequently as last year, as recently as Lukaku last year, and the signings United have got wrong. Money does obviously help, but there is an element of great coaching that does need to go into that. And obviously, the more times you spend money, the more often you'll get it right just through chance. But Guardiola, he's able to go out and he's got the pull. He's been one of the best managers over the past 10 years, if not the best. And City have obviously probably been the team to beat in English football since their first title 10 years ago. But, more often than not, their big signings have worked, which, like I say, if you look at United and you look at Chelsea, you look how, especially United, how many they've got wrong post-Fergie. I think that's another feather in Guardiola's cap. I mean, obviously, we all use it as kind of a jib at him kind of thing, as like, he's got it easy, and obviously Klopp's far more resourceful. That's the way FSG operate. We all know that, but I think obviously, the Grealish thing's an example. I think he'll have a better season this year. I think that tends to happen under Guardiola. There's a bedding period of a season, and then he'll probably hit the heights that we've come to expect from him. But if he'd gone to United, it's who's to say that would have worked out, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So it is interesting. And
you got to think it's not really Pep's fault.
No, it's not.
City have basically an oil nation. I mean, my hat goes off to Pep, because he's still got to keep all these superstars happy, and that's the whole thing. So, I'm not just a Liverpool supporter, I'm a football supporter as well. Yeah. So you have to just, do the thumbs up. He's done an incredible job. Could he do what Klopp does? I don't think so. No,
yeah, I think that's kind of where I separate the two. And I think if it's the whole kind of, for me, it's very similar to the whole Stevie, Scholes, Lampard debate. If you put Gerrard at United, could he have done what Scholes had done? Yes. If you put Gerrard at Chelsea, could he have won and done what Lampard had done? Yes. If you put Lampard at Liverpool and Scholes at Liverpool, no, Liverpool don't win the Champions League. It's pretty simple. Liverpool don't win the FA Cup. Do you know what I mean? It's fairly simple. And it's with the Guardiola stuff, and if you gave him that Liverpool team that he inherited late in 2015, I'm thinking of that first game back against Tottenham, that 0-0. I'm thinking Benteke, Lucas Leiva, Skirtle, John Flanagan, Mignolet, Emre Can, Jordan Ibe, all those kind of players, and to kind of where he's taken Liverpool. Could Guardiola have done that? Would he have had the patience? Would he have? I don't know. That's obviously a different argument, and something that he could, he'd have to prove maybe in time. I don't know if he has to prove anything, but if he wanted to. But yeah, no, I think obviously the whole kind of City, the way City have been propped up by, that's, the Abu Dhabi state, obviously that's obviously something I don't agree with, and obviously similar to kind of what's happened at Newcastle. But I think Klopp, maybe not easily, but I think Klopp, it's far more likely that Klopp would have been able to replicate what City have achieved under Pep than vice versa. And I think that's kind of where my bias for Klopp comes in, and I think he is the better of the two.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree with you. It's like they always say, could Pep do it on a cold night, a rainy night in Stoke with a Stoke team? No. Could Klopp do it? Well, and that's what I want to get into as well. You've got the FSG haters, and the people that I'm on the fence. I think they've done really well for this club. They've made mistakes, like everyone makes mistakes, they do, and they've rectified them pretty quickly. You've still got the FSG haters, and again, Twitter is a very toxic place when it comes to Liverpool fans at the moment. I don't even know if they're Liverpool fans. I just don't, because again, people moaning about last season. If you moan about last season, again, like I always say, maybe football's not for you. Maybe tiddlywinks, something like that. But you can't be moaning. And then we all know, and I'm sure, especially yourself as well as a writer, we know as soon as the season's finished, then everybody has their player list that they want Klopp to get. It's an unrealistic list. What are your thoughts so far on the the transfer window?
This summer?
Yeah.
I think this summer's probably been one of the in terms of how ruthless Liverpool have been with business. I think it's probably been up there with the best. I think I can only probably think of. You look at when we won the Champions League and who came in. I'm thinking Adrian van der Berg. And maybe one more, maybe Lonergan, I think maybe. So you look at Liverpool have gone from European champions and they've not utilised, because I don't think they needed to. They got 97 points in the league. There wasn't a whole great deal that needed to be changed. So they didn't, strengthen then. And if Liverpool Twitter or Liverpool social media spheres had it their way, Liverpool would have ripped out the whole team and started again, which doesn't make any sense. They go on, they become champions. And then, that season is obviously, again, that summer, they make the signing of Thiago, which is, a huge statement in itself. They make the signing of Jota, which is a huge statement in itself. There's reinforcements there. obviously last season they bring Canate in, which, building for the future again, and they've kind of continued that this season, haven't they? But they've gone out and done the business really efficiently. I mean, to have Darwin Núñez, potentially if it all goes to plan with the add-ons, he'll be the most expensive signing in Liverpool's history. To have that wrapped up less than a month after the season has finished, it just shows the groundwork and the kind of research and how forward thinking they are. Even with Michael Edwards' departure, Julian Ward stepped up and he's taken over pretty swiftly, and he's utilised his Portuguese connections to get that over the line. I think everyone can agree that he's at 23, he's obviously going to be the spearhead of Liverpool's new kind of era, new way of playing. It looks like we're expecting it'll be a 4-2-3-1. You brought in Carvalho, which is I think the signing of Carvalho is one that I don't think people have grasped how exciting he can be. I think this is a 19-year-old kid who's put up good numbers in the Championship for a title winning season. I mean, you only have to look at the service he was given Mitrovic, and I think he broke the Championship scoring record, didn't he, last season? So this is a kid who's already played 30-40 senior games. He's proven it as well. Yeah, he's playing Saturday, Tuesday, or whatever they play in that league, and he's obviously proven himself. And the next logical step is to go into the Premier League, and I think it's such an exciting signing that. But I think because it's not because he's not come from Serie A, or because he's not come from La Liga, or because because he's been under our noses the whole time, and because we should have got him in January, but he didn't get over the line. It's, largely underwhelming, strangely, for a lot of people. But I think that he will surprise a lot of people next season. I think I think Calvin Ramsey's a really smart piece of business. I think that's probably, you look at a deputy to Trent is probably the hardest signing to make in senior football, because we've got company.
This one's for you, mate.
I thought I'd locked the door, but obviously it was open.
No, don't worry. No, I was just saying about Calvin Ramsey. I think that's another shrewd addition. I think getting a deputy for Trent has probably arguably been Liverpool's biggest task over the last couple of years. I think you only need to look at what Kostas Tsimikas' arrival has allowed Robertson to do. Take his game to the next level. He's I think prior to even during Tsimikas' first season, obviously he didn't play at all really in the Premier League, did he? And I think we kind of saw Robertson's performance maybe tail off, which is obviously understandable given how much football he played. So especially Trent being at such a young age, I think he's 22, 23 now. So the last thing you want, especially if he's going to be going to World Cups and European Championships and playing, as you'd hope, in most games a season for Liverpool, if they're going for all the trophies, the last thing you want him to do is hit 25 and maybe burn out like someone like Dele Alli's done or Marcus Rashford's done. So I think it's a really smart signing, and you only have to look at again what he's done up in Scotland last year with Aberdeen. He's played European football, he's played in the Conference League, he's played plenty of SPL games. He's won the the FWA's Young Player of the Year. So he's clearly someone who's set. He's set a standard up there of himself, which is obviously why Liverpool signed him. So that's another exciting one. I think, again, it's one that probably goes under the radar because, again, he's not big, he's not signed. It's not a big Darwin Núñez type signing, but sometimes it's those shrewd little additions that complete a squad and just, fine tune the edges. And I think that's what Liverpool have done. I think there's, I can understand why people maybe want another midfielder, but I think you've only got to look how Elliott started last season before he got the injury at Leeds, and obviously he didn't play a lot in the second half of the season when he came back. He obviously played against Cardiff, Southampton, a few times in the FA Cup, but in the league and the European Cup, I think Klopp had his set 11, which we see Klopp do towards the end of the season. When he gets to the business end, he's got that 10, 11, 12 players that he wants, and it's pretty much set in stone. So we didn't see anywhere near as much as him as maybe he would have liked. I interviewed him in May, and he was. You could tell his enthusiasm for the club. Obviously he's supported the club since he was a young lad. His hunger to get into the team. He's there, and obviously his ability. We've all seen it. It's just getting that on a consistent level, and I think you can probably put Curtis Jones into the same bracket as that. Another exciting talent who's maybe tasked with probably the biggest season of his life, so far. I think this season, there's some question marks. I know Klopp's been quite earlier in the season. Last season, Klopp said that he needed to take the next steps, and I think you know, there's maybe a conversation that needs to be had as to where that is. Is he a number 8? Is he a left-sided midfielder? You know, is he a number 10? You know, I think he needs to kind of maybe stamp his authority on a position. I think that comes from the manager as well. So, you know, I think that's why Liverpool probably look to, you know, if the reports are true that are coming from the club that, you know, next season is the year they're going to go for a midfielder, it makes sense. You know, there's not been a real assessment on Elliott yet because, you know, he hasn't, you know, the kid's been injured for 6-7 months. Obviously, Curtis Jones obviously hasn't played as much as he'd like. So, yeah, I think, you know, I completely understand why you would want a midfielder, but I completely understand from a business point of view, you know, you can't just go and throw 100 million at Jude Bellingham and think that'll solve all your problems when you've got 2 good English lads there. Do you know what I mean? So there's obviously a risk element to that. But it's like with the centre back crisis the other year. Like, you know, if Liverpool got an unprecedented amount of injuries, then, you know, people would be quick to point back at, you know, lack of investment or whatever. But I think they've got enough, and I think, you know, I would be surprised if there was another incoming. I think we know that Klopp likes to get the business done early. So, you know, if something obviously does change, that seems to be the message that, you know, if something does change from a selling club, i.e. Borussia Dortmund, you know, if their stance drastically changes, then they will obviously explore that. But I think that applies to every club in Europe, doesn't it? You know, if the selling club weaken the hand in the last week of the window, well, you're going to obviously make advantage of that. But
also, I mean, Dortmund, you know, I've sold Haaland. I mean, did they really want to sell two of their top stars? And I think that's another issue I have with some fans. They just think, just throw money at Dortmund, and they'll go, oh yeah, go on, have Bellingham. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. You know, teams hold other teams hostage, basically. You know, they'll play the mind games and everything. I've always thought, I mean, and people still don't seem to catch on to this. Klopp has a player in mind, and he'll wait for that player. Van Dijk, Alisson, Kanouté. That's why we didn't buy any centre backs during that horrible season. I mean, people were just like, just buy anyone. Why? Yeah. When Van Dijk, Matip, and Gomez are coming back, why spend that amount of money? You know, everybody's like, you know, buying Davies. Like, that was a joke. Yeah. But the joke's on everyone else because we bought him for what?
2 million, I think it was.
Yeah, and we're going to sell him, it looks like, for 5.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point you make there as well. Like, you know, if you go as far back to 2017, when obviously the first kind of, it was Edwards' first window as sporting director, and obviously he kind of had the cock up, shall we say, with the Van Dijk deal. You know, obviously it didn't go according to plan, and, you know, Southampton threatened action with the Premier League, didn't they? And again, like you say, people were clamoring. You know, Koulibaly was a name that was frequently mentioned. You know, and Klopp was like, no, you know, that first half of the season was difficult. You know, I think the football, it was just end to end. You know, it was every game was like a 4-3 or a 3-2, or, you know what I mean, you had to score 3 goals to win a game, which obviously is not efficient at all. But, you know, Klopp then won Southampton's positions change in the January. You know, Van Dijk came in. You know, you can go back to that summer as well. You can look at Salah. I think if people had their way, we would have signed Mario Götze, wouldn't we? Julian Brandt was another name that was branded around, and you know, people thought they knew better, and obviously they didn't. The committee and, you know, the scouts, you know, Barry Hunter and all them, they knew better, and Liverpool, you know, signed Salah, and, you know, the rest is history. But I think that's another reason maybe why we're not a midfielder might have to wait as well, because I just think with the Salah stuff, I think, you know, if Liverpool's, I mean, with each increasing week, it looks unlikely, doesn't it, that he's going to sign. I think, especially when a player gets into the last 12 months, you know, I mean, we saw it with United, and we saw it with Pogba, we saw it with Wijnaldum. When a player gets into the last 12 months and they haven't signed, and there's kind of an impasse, you know, in negotiations, you know, it kind of says one thing. I mean, you think these talks have been going on for 18 months, haven't they, really, since, you know, Salah did that interview with the Spanish media. That's kind of when it came to the forefront of everyone's mind, and obviously now we still haven't had a breakthrough, and I think, you know, it's only 6 months' time that Salah can negotiate a pre-contract with European clubs. So, you know, I think Liverpool's priority would probably be to tie Salah down rather than to look at bringing other players in, because, you know, if you do bring Jude Bellingham in, what wage do you give him? Do you know what I mean? If you think he could go to what are his wage demands, we don't know what his wage demands are, but he's established himself as one of the best midfielders in Europe during a short time. He'd be pretty well placed to ask for kind of whatever he wanted. So the last thing you want to start doing is upset on the apple cart even more, kind of thing. So I think there's a lot can change in the next year, obviously with Salah, Bellingham, and I mean you think if Bellingham has a good World Cup, which you'd expect him to, how does that change? Does someone go from in January? Just I mean, it's a difficult one, and it's like I say, at the minute, I think if Liverpool weren't to bring in another player between now and the transfer window, I think it'd be I'd give it a strong 8 out of 10 as a window. I think it's it's like I say, it's been smooth around the edges, which I think was the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with Bellingham as well, I've just thought it's obviously a World Cup year. Does he want to change clubs? And it's going to take him time to learn the system and everything, and God forbid he doesn't get first team football, and that goes out the window. So I think people just see the name and say, let's get him. They don't actually think about what
the process and both sides. And I mean, you think at Dortmund, they played hardball with United and Sancho, didn't they, for 12 months, 18 months. And, they sold him last summer. They said because they sold Sancho, they weren't going to sell Haaland. So you'd imagine it's a similar sense because they've sold Haaland, they don't want to sell Bellingham. So, I mean, it makes sense. But I think, if Liverpool do end up securing Bellingham next summer, I mean, that would just be, just phenomenal, wouldn't it? I mean, you look at, his profile already. I think it's his birthday. I think he's 19 years old today, isn't he? And I think what he's achieved in the game, in the last 2 years at Dortmund is phenomenal, really. I think, over 100 senior appearances, England appearances, European Championship appearances, Champions League appearances. I mean, it's scary what he could do in the next 13, 14, 15 years. I mean, you look at players like Dele Alli, who you've maybe had high expectations for similarly in the past, but he does seem like a boy who's got the complete package mentally as well. Like fair play to him. Wherever he ends up, whichever club get him, I mean, they're pretty much going to be set, aren't they?
Yeah, I would love for him to come to us. He looks like the real deal, but to learn off of like people like Thiago and Henderson.
I mean, he seems pretty close with Henderson. I think. There's obviously there's a bit of nice play either side, isn't there? I mean, Henderson's obviously putting an arm around him over and when he's with England, and that seems to be reciprocated with the way Bellingham speaks about him, in kind of just as a role model and whatever. And whether there's a deeper meaning to that, who knows? But I mean, it's not a bad thing for Henderson to be doing, is it? And if there's one person in that England squad who's you want to be listening to, who's the model pro, who's kind of made that trajectory at Liverpool, it's Jordan Henderson, isn't it? He's a fantastic ambassador for the club. So it is very exciting.
Yeah, on and off the pitch, like I still, I even had this chat with Sammy Lee, about Henderson. He's not given the plaudits he deserves.
Not at all.
That he should be. And anybody that came after Gerrard was going to, be looked at like, you're not scoring all these goals like Stevie used to. But Henderson's a totally different player. So, yeah. But before we go, I definitely wanted to talk about your writing and how you got into all of that.
So it's kind of a weird one, really. So, like, I never had any intentions to do writing. Like I said, I've always been a bit of a football kind of Liverpool nerd kind of thing, just from a young age, just kind of sponging everything up, and whether it be Christmas annuals, magazines or whatever. But it's always been desperate to kind of like read more and know more about football, and I think that was something that stuck out from like an early age. And countless people said it to me, and I remember it got so bad at one time. My mum used to ban me from talking about football at the dinner table, and so I always kind of knew that, I knew a lot about it, kind of thing. But and at school I didn't really have like a great interest in obviously like sports and everything. That was it. But it was just football, and English didn't really come into that. I wasn't really gripped by it, and I remember when I was, maybe 14, maybe like year 8, year 9, one of my English teachers, said, that I was a really good writer kind of thing. And if something I should explore. But I thought he's probably said that to everyone. And he said to me, like, have you thought of doing sports writing or anything? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, do me a match report this weekend. And I remember the game. It was Liverpool versus West Ham. It was under Rodgers. It was the 14-15. We lost 3-0, I think, at Upton Park. And I got halfway through it, and Liverpool were like 3 goals down at half time, whatever it was. So I just like did this like half-arse match report kind of thing. And he was like, if you stick at this, it's decent. But I didn't really think of it again. And so I left school. I did a football scholarship, a 2-year thing. And then obviously when I realised that that was kind of coming to an end, it was how can I stay involved with football, and how can I how can I make a living in football? And because I didn't want to go into a dead end job that I wouldn't like. And it was the same kind of thing as everyone just said, so much about your thoughts of getting into sports media. And I just looked at it as this kind of like, because of where I'd come from in terms of like, a single parent background, I was like, it just didn't, it's very like an upper class kind of industry, isn't it? White working males from like, pretty privileged backgrounds, and I was like, didn't really see myself fitting in there. And so I signed up to a uni course, sports journalism, for 3 years. And at the start of my 3 years, I think a month in, I went to the Echo and did a week's placement on the sports desk. And I just came back from that. I remember on the 4th day, I went down to the training ground and did Klopp's press conference. And I was just like, oh my God, like, this is incredible. Came back from the week's placement and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do, kind of thing. Like, I know this is me, like, I'm going to do this. And then just, for the last 4 years, just been just doing various things, really, just trying to get my name out there. And I'd say post-pandemic, during the pandemic, it went pretty well because I was attending less games, so I was able to write more and stuff like that. And then last season, it just kind of took off again. Started freelancing and, was at the Echo for a year before I went full-time as a freelancer. So I was just, doing various bits. I was working for another site called This Is Anfield, and doing, lots of stuff with them, interviews, features, and everything that I seemed to do went down really well. And then I got offered the job at the Echo at the start of May, to kind of come full-time, come into the sports desk and kind of, take that challenge on and, learn from, the fantastic people that are already there, the likes of Paul Gorst, Ian Doyle, and all them. And, it was just something I just obviously couldn't turn down. And I think just on my 3rd week, and yeah, it's been. I mean, obviously there's been no football, but there's, it's been fantastic. I mean, I interviewed, Nathan Eccleston. Would that name ring a bell? If I like,
yes, it does. Yeah,
2010. So he played under Benitez and Hodgson. Only a couple of appearances. Yeah, so I'd interviewed him on, what day are we on today? Thursday. What day is it today? Thursday, is it? Yeah. So I interviewed him 2 days ago. That was, fantastic. Like, just really good insight into kind of just growing up at Liverpool kind of thing. Gerrard, Suarez, Torres, Benitez, Hodgson, Rodgers, just plenty. And it's just like, I love telling people stories and kind of putting it into, you know what I mean. Just that's kind of something that that kind of got me into the industry, is like, giving people a voice who probably hadn't had a voice beforehand. And obviously it's, doing it in sport is fantastic. So it's been a great couple of weeks. It's not something that I anticipated a year ago, 10 years ago, sorry, that I'd be doing. But I mean, like every day to get up and write about Liverpool, I mean, you can't complain. You really can't. Like I say, and then obviously, the experiences you get with that is just phenomenal, really.
Yeah, isn't it great? Like you just like, especially for me, for the podcast, 2 years ago, if you asked me would I interview Peter Moore, Sammy Lee, Ronnie Whelan, I'd laugh at you.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where I've got to, meet my idols, even though it's on Zoom. It's still, you're still face to face. Yeah,
having that one-to-one.
It's got to be the same, writing about your favorite club.
Yeah, 100%. And it's looking at different ways to tell. It's looking to like kind of bring my the challenge of kind of like, obviously I'm only 22 myself, so like looking at kind of what people my age want, and kind of bringing that new element to it, and like I say, learning. Obviously, like I say, I'm moving up to Liverpool, and hopefully by the end of next month. So, being in the office and, like I say, learning from the people who have done there and got the stripes and got the t-shirt is obviously the best way to go about it. So, I mean, I've had plenty of that over the last year, obviously in press boxes and interviews and stuff like that. I mean, the best way to learn is to get out there and do it. And yeah, so it's just all very exciting, really. And like I say, with the current team and the current manager and the current era that we're kind of, enjoying, it probably makes it that bit sweeter because, there's so much to talk about. There's so many great stories. There's so many great days. You know what I mean? So it's such an enjoyable time to be a Liverpool fan and to kind of cover the club.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine like coming into your own writing and during like the Hodgson years.
Yeah,
there wasn't much positivity to write about. So you're coming into a time where we've spoken about this, where we're watching probably one of the best football teams on the planet at the moment. So yeah, it's just. I think as well the thing that Klopp has done as well, and kind of everyone above him as well has managed to do over the last 5, 6, 7 years is everyone is pulling in the same direction off the pitch as well. So it's like you talk about the Hodgson days, and in even under just kind of the back end of Benitez's tenure under Hicks and Gillette as well, kind of the whole debacle, that everything that was going off the pitch, wanting to move away from Anfield, all the kind of negative stuff that was, surrounding the club and clouding the club. I think now, you go to anyone and speak to anyone, any of the fan groups and associated with the club or people working with the club, and there's so many positive stories to tell. I mean, we touched on it before we started the interview. Look at Jamie Webster. He's a lad who started doing his bits on the coach, on the away coaches with his guitar to his mates, and he's just played at Glastonbury. Do you know what I mean? And it's not directly related to Liverpool, but Liverpool have kind of helped him with that trajectory kind of thing. And I think that just is such a good story that sums up everything that's firstly, what the city's about is, helping each other kind of level up and achieve what we're capable of doing. But I think as well, the club is, it's the lifeblood of the city, and it doesn't matter if you're a musician or a writer or an artist or whatever. It just shows that the club is such a powerful vehicle to kind of, elevate everyone. And I don't think you'll find a better example than what Jamie Webster's done. Yeah, he's a sound lad. You've just hit the nail on the head. Just Scousers especially, they take care of one another, but it's not just they take care of Scousers, they help other people. And that's a very massive success story for Jamie. And his career is just getting started, and he's obviously like played the pinnacle. We message back and forth, and I'm just like, have you come down from Glasgow yet? And he's like, no, because he hadn't drank in like 18 months because he wanted to, make sure the shows are done, and he was finally able to have a bevy. And I saw some backstage stuff before, and he was just, he ran out at that crowd, just
it's great, isn't it? I mean,
like a little child. Got his massive birthday wish, and who better to play before is Billy Bragg, another massive. I'm a massive.
Who better as well to represent the kind of the city and the culture of Liverpool than you know what I mean, kind of thing. Like, who's better to stand out there and represent Liverpool and our generation and kind of the working class audience like Glastonbury and Jamie Webster. I don't think there's I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I don't think you'll find a better fit. There's people in that crowd who aren't from Liverpool, from Wales, from London, from wherever, but he represents a working class generation, and I think his songs and his lyrics say that, don't they? And fair props to him, but like I say, that kind of summarizes how well the club and the city's move forward over under Klopp, and it's all intertwinable, isn't it? It's all relatable, and I think, like I say, I think he's just the perfect success story, really.
And hopefully you will be as well.
Fingers crossed.
I'll have you back on like next year, and you'll tell me you've interviewed this person and this person and this person. I'll have to go to you for contact info now. Yeah.
Oh, that's a dream.
But I really appreciate you coming on, and I wish you all the best in writing and everything. And I know you're right about that other team as well, which it's got to tickle you before we go. It's got to tickle you how bad they were last season. You know,
I know,
I know you've got to. I mean, how's your process with that? Because obviously you're a Liverpool supporter, but you've got to write about them. That's got to be that your mindset. You probably just got to be. Yeah, I know I can't stand them.
I'd say as well. Obviously, I think last season I did. I think we played 63 games. I think I did 51 of them. So obviously I'm still a fan, I still go to like most of the games. But I think, since I've kind of got into the profession of like working and, going in the press box over the last 2-3 years and, working as a journalist, so to speak, I think quickly that impartiality and the kind of the way you viewed, even the way I view Liverpool, obviously I am as big a fan as anyone, but I can be, not that I was deluded or something beforehand, but do you know what I mean? I think everyone's, if the club need criticising, i.e. with the Super League stuff, I think people are, no one's hiding behind that they're a fan or anything. I think, if anything, being a fan makes you more critical because you probably want the best for the club. And obviously in regards to like writing about Everton and that, I mean, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, like I view it all the same kind of thing. Like, obviously I know far more about Liverpool. I'm far more comfortable writing about Liverpool. I mean, that's just natural. Everyone has that one team their preference of, but I think as well, like, just being able to write about football, is just a dream. And whether it be, Everton or Burnley or Sheffield United, like they're all teams I've covered in the past. I'd say like I do it all like as equally as I can. Do you know what I mean? I might know more about one team and my knowledge might be superior in that department, but I just kind of view it as all as the same opportunity and just the same chance to make such a, an impression kind of thing. But I mean, yeah, I mean, they could be in serious trouble this year. I mean, if Richarlison does go, even Anthony Gordon, I mean, he's regardless of, what you think of Everton, I mean, he's an exciting player, isn't he? His performance at Anfield last year, I mean, I know he got a few times he went to ground a bit too easily, but, he's 19 years old, and the way he dragged Everton during that performance, like, I know they lost in the end 2-0, but for 70 minutes they were in the game, and that was kind of to him being an outlet. And I think, the sky's probably the limit for him if he gets his move right, if he stays at Everton, which I probably think is the best thing for him at the minute. I think, if Richarlison goes, there's a chance there to step up and be the main man. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it can get any worse than last season for them. I think, it's got to be, there can't be another relegation fight, can they? I think large amounts of that, as much as it pains me to say, it was down to Rafa, wasn't it, and his kind of ineptness at this level now. So I think they'll be all right next season. I think they'll, if they sort the financial off the field problems, I think, and they get a recruitment right, they'll sure they can squeeze a top half finish. Yeah,
I don't really care where they finish, to be honest, because Liverpool will be here.
That's it. As long as Liverpool are doing what they're doing, and as long as they're not battling against Everton, as long as you're not having to look behind your shoulder for Everton, it's all good, isn't it?
Yeah, I try not to think too much about them. I mean, I've got a couple of cousins that are Evertonians, and last season for me was the best season ever. Just to have a go with them, and obviously they just throw words back at you, but they are where they are, and we are where we are, and I'm looking forward to this season and seeing, what we do this season. I think we'll have another good season. I think part of me thinks the domestic cups will be kind of put on the back burner again.
Yeah, I think they have to be. I think especially with the World Cup and everything. But I mean, I'm just glad because the FA Cup's the one I've wanted us to see for. I mean, it's not got the same. It's not the same. Not got the same shine as it did have 16 years ago. Even as long as 10 years ago. But it's still the oldest knockout competition in the world, isn't it? It's still the one that you grew up watching, the one that you look forward to at the end of May, kind of thing. So to see us win that, but yeah, I think we'll be all right. I think we'll be there or thereabouts. I mean, City are going through a new era themselves, and it's going to be interesting to kind of see if there's any adaptation stage for both teams. There's a different way of playing. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they pulled up similar numbers. If we're looking at 95, 96, 97, 98 points again. But as long as Liverpool keep winning, that's all you can ask for, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to leave it on that note because that's a good note to finish. Well, KEIFER, again, I really appreciate you coming on, mate.
Thank you very much for having me, Daz. I thoroughly enjoyed it.